184 registrants today. How exciting for this webinar. We're looking forward to the speakers and the presentations. Market access and regulatory update for medical device manufacturers is the title and subject today. I'm Omar Owais, the Director of Investor Consulting at Germany Trade Invest in the Washington, D.C. office. And I will be your moderator today, and I will be leading you through this webinar. Real quick recap, Germany Trade Invest in its new corporate design, its new look, its new fresh look, is still the economic development agency of Germany. In a nutshell, we help international companies establish their business operations in Germany. We have four main mandates or areas of focus. One, obviously, we market Germany as a business and technology location in order to create and secure jobs in Germany. We promote all the federal states as well as the new federal states and Berlin. Some of these new federal states have advantageous incentives and more attractive offers, but nonetheless we obviously market all and promote all of Germany. We also provide consultancy services for the investors, which I'll get into on the next slide. And we have all sorts of market information for the German economy as well. Real quick again, individual consulting for investors includes, but is not limited to, market and industry reports. We help with market entry analysis, tax and legal information that investors may have. We look at funding and financing options in Germany, partnering possibilities, as well as site selection throughout Germany. All the publications and the services are free of charge. We're funded by the German government. A quick look at our webinar series. The healthcare webinar series has been very successful for us over now. This is its third year, 2016. We're also going to be highlighting apps and mobile health solutions later on this year, as well as taking another look at the biopharmaceutical industry. Just a couple of quick highlights, 2014, 2015. You can access all these things off the URL that is at the very bottom of all my slides, the gtai.com/succeed in German healthcare. The highlights include the German hospital market, partnering and funding options in the bioregions, looked at the aging society in Germany. We have touched upon the digital healthcare as well as the over-the-counter OTC market in Germany. But today we have three outstanding speakers, Mr. Gabriel Fleming from our Berlin headquarters. We have Mr. Michael Weisser from AIM GmbH in Lörrach, southwestern Germany. And we also have Mr. Wouter Donders from Endostim Inc, located in The Hague in the Netherlands. I already see a few questions come in. Yes, these slides will be available to everyone at the end, as well as the webinar, which is being recorded. It will be a live stream. Again, please do check back at our URL at the bottom. And you can post further questions using your toolbar located, using the question item or icon in your toolbar on the right-hand side. Without further ado, let's begin with our first speaker, Mr. Gabriel Fleming. He'll give us a regulatory update and what's going on with the revisions of the medical device regulation in Germany and in Europe, really. He's Senior Manager of Healthcare in our Germany Trade Invest Berlin headquarters. Gabriel, I will hand it over to you, and we look forward to your presentation.
Right. Thank you very much for the introductions, Omar. It's certainly my pleasure to provide you my market access and regulatory update on the European Union and Germany specifically. As Omar mentioned, we have a revision of the European medical device regulation ongoing, and it actually started 2012. This is 4 years ago. What's new? As of May this year, the three major legislative bodies of Europe, of the European Union, have agreed upon one revision proposal. This 400-page document is now available in English language. It's expected that the European Parliament will finally approve this proposal, and it will be published in the official Journal of the European Union as of December this year. 3 years from being published, the proposal or the revision will become effective. as CE marks are valid in general for 5 years, this means that you can still provide start your certification process until then, and it means that when you start your CE mark under the current framework, the CE mark will still be valid under the current framework until the year 2024. In other words, current framework CE marks will disappear 8 years from now. From the German perspective, the revision proposal is a fair compromise, as some German legislation has been incorporated. We are still waiting for the amendments anticipated to come, so all the details will be clarified as soon as the amendments come. So we will still have to wait for some clarity, but what we can say as per what to prepare for now is, for one thing, ISO certified manufacturers are already pretty well prepared for the top issues of the revision. Top issues being some reclassifications of class 1, primarily surgical instruments being reclassified into 2A, and some 2B into class 3. Notified bodies will be required to increase their number of unannounced auditory visits to manufacturers and also their critical suppliers, even when they're based outside of the European Union. Manufacturers who have quality management systems harmonized with their suppliers will face a reduced likelihood of having notified bodies show up unannounced. So this might be recommendable. We'll have a unique device information and identification system put in place, where every medical product will have to bear its own barcode and data matrix code. And the unique device identification database will grant access to some 21 elements of information per every device. In general, we'll have a call for more clinical data. Every medical product will have to provide a basic clinical evaluation, and especially class 3 products will need to provide individually generated clinical trial data. Specifically, it will not be possible no longer to refer to external literature as per clinical trial data. This information, or clinical trial information, will be published in the UDEMED database of the European Union. And it's comforting to know that the legislators have committed not to be publishing confidential information that might compromise companies' products. Another top issue of the revision is the introduction of a new scrutiny procedure for the certification of class 3 products specifically. Bottom line here is that notified bodies will be essentially supervised by a new European expert commission to be put in place. Notified bodies are required to produce clinical evaluation assessment reports, acronym CER, and to present these to the European Expert Commission, which in turn is authorized to issue a scientific statement based on the CER, which may require the notified body to restrict or withhold the CE mark in the certification process. Bottom line here again is a call for more clinical data. This should be posing a pretty good business outlook for notified bodies and CROs, clinical research organizations, and it's expected actually that they will have to increase their capacities here in Europe in order to avoid a backlog in scrutiny cases. So this is so far to the European Medical Device Regulation revision. Let me now proceed with some information regarding the clinical resources we can provide in Germany. The infrastructure here is business-oriented. It's quite easy to find clinical partners. Our system of medical technology cluster networks is open to foreign companies who are interested in becoming established here. And while it's not mandatory to run clinical trials here in Germany for you, it's actually quite a common feature of a market access strategy to collaborate with key opinion leaders from medical societies and hospitals. And this is where the clusters are especially helpful, as their genuine role is to connect industry and academic and clinical players. They're also very helpful when it comes to funding joint R&D projects. The cluster management often is situated on campus of university hospitals where they provide shared facilities. And it's certainly our pleasure to invite all our webinar participants to consider visiting us here, maybe during your upcoming visit to Medica. And it will be my pleasure to introduce, make some personal introductions for you here locally. You will see that working with clinical resources and partners is element both of our regulatory checklist here on the left and our reimbursement checklist on the right. The regulatory checklist pays respect to both current legislation of the EU and Germany. What you have to do in order to be allowed to sell here is, for starts, you'll have to assign an authorized representative in the European Union if your company is yet based outside of Europe. You will have to assign a product safety contact due to German legislation, assign a product safety contact to German authorities here. Of course, you'll have to declare conformity with European regulation and acquire your CE mark. We discussed that. I discussed that. And in case you need to run clinical trials here in Germany, you will actually have to apply at the BfArM Institute for pharmaceuticals and medical products. And the BfArM Institute actually will approve of your application, also with regards to a verdict of an ethics commission. Once you've checked all these points, you can, or you have to notify the German DIMDI Institute for Medical Information that you are about to sell product in the German market. It's important to realize here, though, that you are allowed to sell your product in Germany, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your prospective customers can buy your product or that the German healthcare insurances can reimburse your product. As per reimbursement and the steps you need to take here in Germany, this is shown on the reimbursement checklist here on the right. I will leave it up to our following speakers, though, Mr. Michael Weiser of I Assessment in Medicine GmbH and Mr. Wouter Donders of Endostim to explore reimbursement in detail. Let me just finish my presentation with making some remarks on your buyer options here in Germany and the sales options, sales channel options you have. So depending on your product, you might be selling to hospitals. We have 2,000 hospitals here in Germany. You might be selling to their purchasing groups via tenders. You might be selling into the outpatient sector, which you know, is the practices sector. Care homes, home care medical supply stores. We have thousands of pharmacies, and eventually you might even be selling into the out-of-pocket market, meaning private households. So no matter where you're selling into, it's probably very necessary to have local staff here on the ground to do the job. It is not so common to run a minimalistic model, selling through a digital, you know, through a website without having a subsidiary here is quite uncommon because you have so many things to fulfill. You have to assign an authorized representative, a product safety contact. You will have to organize some sort of logistics service provider, etc., which makes it necessary to have somebody here on the ground and coordinate all these functions. Additionally, unlike Asia and the US, it's not so easy to find fee-for-service sales teams here in Germany. Their niche would be for the main part in Class 1 sector, Class 1 product sector. Class 3 products would be much more sophisticated, and they come with regulatory issues, reimbursement issues. You will have to do product user training. Probably you'll need technical service, etc., etc. You'll be dealing with product liability issues, which makes it, in summary, makes it difficult to generate a margin that you will want to share with a distributor team. Let me conclude my presentation here with just saying that the most companies that we work for decide to set up a subsidiary in Germany for either sales, manufacturing, or R&D purposes, or all of them combined. We're here to provide answer to any question you might have of how to get there and what it takes to become established here in Germany. And just to repeat once again, our services are free of charge. We keep your information confidentially. I'm based in Berlin, always available on the phone and via email, of course. Thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to hearing from our other speakers.
Gabriel, thank you so much. Absolutely, we try to be the one-stop shop for anyone interested in looking closer at Germany. Our next speaker will get into a little bit more about the reimbursement structure in Germany and give us a further update. It's Michael Weiser, Chief Operating Officer at AIM in Nuremberg, Germany. And we look forward to his presentation as well. I'll hand over to the right to you right now.
Thanks very much. Welcome from my side as well. My name is Michael Weiser. I'm COO of Assessment and Medicine, abbreviated AIM. I will give you today an update, an overview and an update of the reimbursement system in Germany, and the overview clearly relates to a hot topic, which is the new NUB process change in Germany. Before we start, just a brief summary on where I come from and what we do here at the company. Assessment and Medicine, AIM is part of the EGIS group, which consists of 4 subgroups, providing various services and consulting and additional supporting services for a broad range of life science companies. Origin of the group is the EGIS Institute, once founded as a university spin-off, and in the meantime existed for more than 35 years. We here, the group of AIM, exclusively focus on the medical device sector. We exist for almost 10 years, and for the whole time we focused on consultancy and other services for medical device companies, mainly in the field of reimbursement, pricing, market access, etc. So we are following all the developments here very, very closely, and this is the reason why I was invited to talk about reimbursement and the update, as I indicated in the beginning. So starting with an overview of the German reimbursement landscape. And I would like to start with a few general remarks. We have around about 81 million people here in Germany, and in Germany the healthcare system is managed by an insurance scheme, so no public scheme like in other European countries. And 90% of the people in Germany are covered by the so-called statutory health insurance, abbreviated as SHI. And because of this large share of patients under this insurance scheme, this will be the focus today here of my talk. What you see here exactly on the slide is referring to the question of coverage. And with coverage, I mean the question, are payers, so the SHI, going to pay at all for a specific method and for specific treatment, independent from the question of the payment level. This is a separate issue to which I come later. The scheme you see here applies, as you can also see in the upper part of the slide, to innovative medical devices, which define a new diagnostic or therapeutic method. Once the device has CE mark and once manufacturers are entering the German market, it's crucial to think about in which setting can the device be applied to. Is it in the inpatient setting? You see that on the left side in green, or in the outpatient setting, you see it here on the right side in orange. It's important because coverage by SHI is divided between these 2 sectors. On the left hand, in the inpatient setting, which usually refers to a hospital stay of a patient of at least 1 night, The case is that the method is reimbursed under the existing tariff as long as no basic principles of quality of care and or efficiency are violated. We call this subject to prohibition, so everything allowed until forbidden in a very, very roughly speaking manner. On the right-hand side, in the outpatient setting, it's the other way around. The reimbursability of any new method and therefore also of any new device related to that method. The question of coverage is related to an approval first. It's subject to approval, so meaning reimbursability and reimbursement is only given after the payers have given their approval. One last word on Me Too products. Me Too products, or basically speaking, any product not defining a new method. And if there's already a reimbursement solution or a reimbursement coverage decision made, it's usually the case that you can simply piggyback on that solution. Now turning from the basic coverage principle to the reimbursement level, so the payment rate, let's have a look first at the basics in the inpatient setting. The basis of finance of a case is the German DRG system. DRG means diagnosis related groups. This means that hospitals get one lump sum per stay of a patient, so for the time period between the admission and the discharge of a patient. And commonly, I mentioned that already, this usually refers to a patient staying at least one night in hospital, although there are some exemptions. We have around about 1,200 different DRGs in Germany, and in order to select one of these DRGs for one single case, we use in Germany two coding systems. One refers to the ICD-10 in a German modification, this is the diagnosis code system, and hospitals combine these codes with procedure codes which are abbreviated in Germany as OPS. Hospitals, as I said, combine this, plus in some specific situations they can top up the outcome, which is a DRG. They can top this up by two possible extra rates. One is called, or abbreviated, NUB. This stands for New Diagnostic or Therapeutic Methods. It's an innovation payment scheme. I will talk about this later in a bit more detail. And on the other hand, we have simply called extra rates, abbreviated as ZE. And depending on the exact case constellation, they can utilize the DRG plus one of these two schemes. Turning to the outpatient setting, we have to differentiate two situations. One situation which I would like to start with refers to the lower part of the slide. You see here the abbreviation EBM. EBM is the abbreviation for the physician service tariff under the statutory health insurance scheme, so our focus here today. Each tariff has a point value, and by that the monetary values which physicians get are determined. Methods that are part of the EBM are paid for by the insurances, and usually all medical devices related to that method then are paid for too. Bringing a new method into this EBM scheme can, however, only be initiated by, basically speaking, two parties. You see them here. One is abbreviated KBV, which is the SHI Registered Physician Association, and the other one is the GKV Spitzenverband, which is the Federal Association of Statutory Health Insurances. Before any new method can be implemented into EBM, one of these organizations has to apply at another organization, which is abbreviated G-BA. It's the Joint Federal Committee. The Joint Federal Committee conducts an assessment based upon clinical evidence and then decides whether or not a new method should be covered by the SHI. And if this coverage decision outcome is positive, then a new physician tariff in the EBM will be created. Many innovative methods, however, start with another scheme, also because of the high requirements of that clinical assessment here, clinical evidence assessment, I mean. These are separate contracts which are usually valid locally or regionally for specific regions in Germany. The initiative for these contracts come from either the healthcare providers or single insurances, and they have to agree by negotiation on coverage and reimbursement on board this new method, including the devices. and therefore, because it's negotiation, there are individual payment rules applying. So far, so good for the outpatient setting and reimbursement level. Now let's turn to the thing that is really an update on the reimbursement side in Germany, and a hot topic, as I mentioned, for around about more than a year now in the meantime. Before turning to the changes of this NUB process, first let's start with the basics, and as the system has been existing so far. The NUB process relates to running costs of a case in the inpatient setting. It relates only to innovative methods, so it's just really for new treatments, for new methods. The process is a two-step process. Individual hospitals in Germany submit an application to the DRG Institute, which is abbreviated INAC, once a year. They ask there for the allowance to negotiate temporarily limited extra rates on top of otherwise applicable DRGs. And as you can see, these applications take place yearly in September and October, and the application is valid for the following year. Then INAC processes these requests, and by January 31st, so 3 months later, they decide and publish about the request and whether these requests are approved or not. If a request is approved for specific methods, the applying hospitals can negotiate extra rates together with their local partners, meaning the regional insurance boards. Negotiations, by the way, can be the hardest part of that process, and the results vary from region to region. It's advisable for manufacturers to cooperate and support these hospitals in both steps, meaning for the applications and later on for the negotiations. The most striking aspect of the whole process so far and the start of the change in the process is that so far no official assessment of the benefit and of the clinical evidence of these methods has been existent so far. So in 2015, we had a new law, translated Healthcare Strengthening Law, introducing a new paragraph, 137H, Social Code Book 5. This is also colloquially mentioned in association with the new process. What the whole law is about is that from 2016 onwards now, in that NUB process, there will be a mandatory benefit assessment conducted by the Joint Federal Committee. And methods subject to the process relate to medical devices. So if a medical device of what they call risk class 2B and 3 or active implants with an especially invasive character is used, and if that method provides a new scientific theoretical concept, and if there is a first ever NUB application for it, then this benefit assessment will be mandatory. As you can see, these criteria are quite vague, and it is probably not possible to directly decide whether or not a specific product or method will be subject to it. However, what I can tell you right away is that there will be a free of charge G-BA consultation possible where manufacturers can ask whether or not a method using a specific device is actually subject to this process. The outcome of that public and free consultation will be a public and binding information about exactly that question. So what will happen in the future is that there will be two assessment lines if a new method is subject to the process. The first one I already explained. This is the common route towards an inside INAC. They will assess the request from the hospitals, look for it or have it assessed just on the perspective of the economic situation, so the DRG system, and they will simply decide whether or not they allow for extra rate negotiation for the applied method. However, in parallel and completely independent, G-BA will in the future then, if applicable, do this benefit assessment and strikingly decide about the coverage status. So the crucial question, will the SHI, in German GKV, pay for it, for that method at all or not? So we have clear separation between extra rate or extra rate negotiations allowed and coverage status. So what are the potential outcomes of the G-BA assessment, which is most crucial? The assessment outcomes can be categorized into three categories. The best one you see left, benefit of the method is proven. If G-BA comes to that conclusion after looking at the method, then potentially there will be an official quality guideline release to which the hospitals have to comply with, but anything else is no problem at all. Then we have a second category, and I would determine this as the second best outcome. G-BA could come to the conclusion that for the specific method they don't see a benefit proven already, but they see it as a potential to be a necessary treatment alternative. The decision, or what they will do, is then within 6 months decide about a testing regulation guideline. To say it right away, they will decide whether or not they would like to see another clinical trial run in Germany. I'll give you some more details in a second. And after the clinical trial then is done, and the law says it should commonly be done within 2 years, then they will decide upon coverage on the basis of the clinical trial results. So this is, so to say, a postponed decision about coverage on the basis of a new clinical trial. The worst outcome on the right side hand here of the slide is that G-BA could come to the conclusion that neither the benefit nor the potential to be a necessary treatment alternative is associated with the method on basis of clinical evidence, and so there will be an immediate decision about an exclusion from coverage under the SHI scheme, which would mean that the market, basically speaking, is dead for the specific method. One question of interest could now be, of course, which evidence requirements do you have to meet here? All we can say is that a proven benefit, usually from the perspective of the G-BA, requires a 2-arm control study, ideally randomized. For the potential to be a necessary treatment alternative, it depends on the method, but you will certainly need clinical trial results whatsoever, and typically more than just a case report or a small series of cases. Now, on one of the last slides, just a few more information on that second best outcome, because it has some implications also. When this trial will be initiated, or all the way around, the possibility to initiate these type of trials has been in existence in the meantime for 4 years. So far, however, not one trial has started yet under this possibility. Now, assume you would be subject to such a decision by the G-BA, and they would like to conduct a trial. What do you have to consider? First of all, this trial will only take part or place in Germany. The reason is the co-funding issue. The trial has to be co-funded. The running costs, basically speaking, per patient will be covered by insurance funds or the monies from the insurances. You as a manufacturer would have to co-fund the overhead or the trial by taking over the overhead costs. What we can expect, given the way how G-BA assesses and does the coverage decision, it's clear that they will apply the highest possible evidence requirements that they can see as feasible. So we expect here usually controlled trials, maybe even randomized controlled trials if suitable. One especially important thing is that you should be aware that if the G-BA decides for such a trial and no manufacturer, affected manufacturer, would be willing to co-finance this trial, the method will likely be excluded from coverage. So there's a kind of pressure then on the manufacturer to participate and co-fund the trial. And then on the basis of the trial, there will be later on the inpatient setting related coverage decision. So coming to an end of the session and summarize what we see at the current development. In general, what we see is that more and more clinical evidence is required in all sectors. We see first bricks in the wall of the inpatient subject to prohibition principle in Germany I talked about in the beginning, especially now via this new NUB process. The manufacturers have to prepare more carefully before entering the German inpatient market, and this is especially valid if you're subject or could be subject to the new NUB process, because clinical evidence will now play a crucial role either by the existing evidence, which has to meet the requirements of G-BA, or if the evidence is lacking and you first have to generate this, or if the evidence should be generated by this coverage with evidence development program. So the last aspect I mentioned, this program exists since 4 years. We can only recommend to all manufacturers, if you're potentially subject to the new process, take advantage of this free of charge G-BA consultation process, enter close cooperations with hospitals, prepare well for the evidence requirements way before entering that process, the NUB process, internally clarify whether you are willing or not to co-fund such a testing trial if necessary, and apart from that, prepare for the INEC-related process in parallel, meaning supporting the hospitals for the application and later on negotiations. And yes, thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to answer questions if there are any, and I would like to pass back now to Omar Owais, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A. Thank you.
No, Michael, we have to say thank you. I tell you, that is not an easy topic to discuss in 20 minutes, but you do it very nicely, so thank you so much for your time and for that overview. So we've heard about the revision, we've heard about reimbursement in Germany, and now actually we want to move on to a testimonial and a case study from a company that successfully secured market access in Germany. That's Endostim, and we are honored to have Mr. Wouter Donders, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing, EMEA at Endostim, coming to you live from The Hague, Netherlands. Wouter, here you go. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Wouter Donders. I'm responsible for Endostim, the sales and marketing part, for running and introducing the new technology in the EMEA market, which means that we are pushing our products, especially in the Western European markets as well as in the Gulf markets. But first, a little bit about Endostim. Endostim is a new solution for an undertreated disease, which is called GERD, which is reflux disease, which is disrupting millions of patients worldwide. And what we are doing, we have a neuromodulation device which helps to normalize sphincter function, which is the root cause of gastro reflux disease. And I am going to explain you a little bit about our therapy, and what we are doing. We have a very gentle procedure. We are introducing our leads into the lower esophageal sphincter, which helps to treat the sphincter function. We can be very smart in how we address the sphincter via neuromodulation stimulation. We have 2 electrodes with an IPG, which is a pacemaker, and via a pacemaker we can do personalized therapy, which is a very safe and effective way in treating patients. And who do we treat? We treat the patients who are not treated well on pharmaceutical treatment. And not treating well on pharmaceutical treatment is mainly people are taking PPIs, which are proton pump inhibitors, which are suppressing acid. And proton pump inhibitors is a very effective medicine, and millions of people are taking it. 20% of the German population is taking it, though only 70% of everybody, PPI is effective. There is a therapy gap because what PPI is doing is suppressing acids and does not stop regurgitate the fluid from the stomach back upwards towards the esophagus. And what we are doing is we are restoring sphincter function, so we are making sure that when bolus, which is fluid, is passing from the esophagus to the stomach, it's open and then closed again. But the other way around as well, we are making sure that if you have gas bloaters or you have something, too much air in your stomach, you have to burp, and then the valve needs to open the other way around. So what we're doing is that we are treating normal sphincter function, and most of the people who are treated long-term on PPI are getting a weaker sphincter function and have to take more and more PPIs. So the market is quite big, as well as the therapy gap is quite big as well. We go after that. To show you off how it is working, I am showing you here a video and how we are implanting our device. As I told you, we are implanting the device via laparoscopy. What you see here is a male, where you see also in an animation where the IPG will be placed. This is done via laparoscopy, and you go via 5 trocars. You access the lower esophageal sphincter, and what you do is you prepare and dissect the right side of the lower esophagus, and via one of the ports you are introducing our electrodes. And our electrodes are in front of the butterfly, and what we're doing here is we are placing the electrodes in the muscle of the lower esophagus and making sure that we are securing this as well. We want to make sure that we are in the esophagus, and therefore we do an endoscopic check to see where we did not perforate. If all is fine, what we do here is we are securing and locking the electrodes via non-absorbable surgical bonds. Then we are preparing a pocket where we are placing our IPG, which is in reality it's a pacemaker, and we're tunneling the leads to the IPG, and we connect that to the IPG. Now we have a wireless wand. Now, by the wireless wand, we are controlling if the electrodes are placed in the correct way, and if that's the case, we can close the patient. We make sure, before we finally close, that we adjust the lead, and then in the end, the patient is closed, trocars be taken out, and we are starting our stimulation therapy. We stimulate only 30 minutes, and then 90 minutes we don't stimulate. The patient doesn't feel it, and we are very effective in our long-term asset barrier. Means that as it does not go up, we stop regurgitation or even nighttime reflux. We have on our device a modus where we can have a supine modus, so if people are laying down, then people have stimulation only at night. We see in our clinical trials that we are eliminating the need for long-term use of PPIs. 80% of all our patients are PPI free, and because we are limiting the change of the anatomy, we have almost no side effect profile. So you've seen how this is being done. This is relatively simple, but of course, in an animation, everything is simple. This is still surgery, and surgery needs to be done by a good surgeon. So this is what we are. We have excellent clinical outcomes, and this is being published in the recent publication at the DDW in San Diego, as well as in SAGES, and now we have also at the UEGW, which is the biggest European show. We have full coverage from the gastroenterologists as well as from the surgeons, because everybody is very happy with this new technology which is coming to the marketplace. But it needed to be marketed well before we entered Germany. So this is where I'm going to talk with you about is how we have done this. You've seen the previous speaker, Michael Weiser, which I am using as well as my reimbursement consultant, and we've been very successful together in finding the right pathway in how to get coverage in Germany. And you see here we have diagnostic codes, you have procedure codes, and you have a DRG. Apart from these DRGs, I'm not going into the detail because my previous speaker has talked about this, you have NUB status 1, 2, 3, and 4. Depending, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 is how important it is. NUB means that you have the right to negotiate as a hospital with an insurance companies for the year following the negotiations. It is very important because if you want to enter a marketplace, NUB is great, but you need to prepare very, very carefully, very well your sales force and how to sell the device and how to sell the pre-financing for the device. If you do this well and you work with a very good reimbursement consultant, he can help to support you in the best way possible, because otherwise you're making the mistakes by going in blind with no backup and no footage for the sales force or for the hospitals to get successful negotiations. Sometimes people are giving even, or sometimes people are getting extra rates. This is the Zusatzentgelt for more expensive devices on top of the DRG. So going back to talking about what were our milestones. Yeah, in 2012, October to be precise, we received the CE mark, and we straight on, started to go directly to Germany, because we saw that Germany was for Europe the main entry point for Endostim. We directly received NUB status 1, means that you can negotiate with the hospitals, or you can negotiate with the hospitals can negotiate when they apply for the NUB. And we have been making sure, that by doing so, that we are identifying the right hospitals who would be able to start and see this as an unmet need for their patients. So 2014, we have been working very hard to get an own procedure code for Endostim. At the same time, we renewed our NUB status, because the NUB status needs to be renewed every year. In 2015, because we have done more cases and more hospitals have started, we have applied for DRG as well. The NUB status 1 was renewed, and we got in 2016 our own DRG code, which is covering the costs. And on top of this, we still also have the NUB status, which has been renewed as well. So I would say it was a very interesting pathway. It was not always very easy, but in the end, it is very successful. And one of the success factors, is before entering a market, you need to do your intelligence. Who are your stakeholders? What is the need? What does the market need? What does the user need? And think about what does the patient need, and what does the user, in this case for us, the gastroenterologist, as well as the surgeons, what do they need to make this a successful business / product introduction to the marketplace. So you need to look to partners as well who can help you, and you need to come to an action plan. And that action plan is, in my opinion, very important. To do this, you make a business case, you look into how you want to do this. And you need to make sure you do this with local people in Germany, because if you want to do it outside of Germany, and I'm a Dutchman myself, I've spent a lot of time in Germany. We needed to go and to have Germans to drive the German marketplace. And this is a key thing and a key success factor for everybody. And last but not least, Germany is a market, and it only flies when there is coverage. So your reimbursement strategy needs to be right. Do you want to sell inpatient? Do you want to sell outpatient? And you need to understand the cost structure of the whole system. So just coming back in what were our success factors, in 2013, we had 9 hospitals to apply for NUB. 14, 15, and 16, you could see it was growing from 40 to 65 to 89. And in the end, we had a very large pool of hospitals who were successfully negotiating for NUB. And the NUB status 1 helps for a higher reimbursement for products for the hospitals, and also for more procedures, because some of the NUB negotiations with hospitals and insurance companies are capped. But the more people are doing this, the more weighting it gets within the system as well. So one of the other success factors was the OPS codes. You create your own OPS codes for the procedure. That's the procedure code, and this is what we have created. It's an implementation of an anti-reflux stimulation system, but at the same time we have been working also for the partial or the exchange of an anti-reflux stimulation system, because after 7 years the battery is out. So you better make sure that you're working on that one as well. We completed the exchange or a probe exchange or a unit exchange, or even removing an anti-reflux system out of a patient if a explant needs to happen, which fortunately enough, that is very, very, very seldom with in our case. But you needed to create this to make sure that if you have all this, you get the awareness of the ENAC in the calculation hospitals, and you get a DRG revision. Means that people understand exactly what is the cost involved in all of this. So the major shift and the major success factor is if you have coverage now in DRG, now in principle all hospitals who are doing anti-reflux surgery in the past are now able to use the DRG. And our DRG number, which we started with, was the G19C and G19B, depending whether you were doing a more difficult case or a less difficult case. And we got now a full new DRG assignment, which is the G04A, and we shifted from 5,000 to 8,000 now to almost 10,750, depending per state, but it can even be to 11,000 euros. And this is now a profit for a gastroenterologist and a surgeon, and this interdisciplinary approach will help people, to get a new treatment when the PPI therapy don't work, and that is quite a big step forward for us. So one of the other key factors is coding and negotiation guidelines. One of the key things is you need to make sure that the coding guidelines are to ensure the correct coding of the procedure and the correct DRG assignment. What do I mean with this is that if you do not code correctly and you do not have the costs related to the coding correctly, then ENAC is coming back to you and say, no, this is not the right way. You need to have the right cost structure in place. Therefore, my recommendation is identify friendly hospitals, medical controls, and have insight in costs. In this way, you can get a bottom-up cost calculation, which you can set your prices accordingly, so the technology is still a profitable business. One of the other things, which is very important, is the NUB negotiation guides, which help customers and medical controllers, to convince and to speak with insurance companies. And we have created calculation tools as well as other innovation payments to help to make sure that by introducing new technology, the hospital was not writing red figures. And together, we helped really to put things into the DRG system. It was a combination with all the stakeholders because everybody needs to understand this is the right way. So clinical work, nothing goes without clinical work. We are a Class 3 device. We are showing safety, efficacy, quality of life, economical benefits. We are comparing now to the gold standard, and we are showing up economical benefit in the end. We have been supporting the reimbursement activities big time, and one of the critical thing is the support does not only come because we are supporting the controllers, but the society endorsement is enormous important because the KOLs will drive you to help things through this system. And awareness, podium time, and making sure that everything what you're doing, you're rolling out a clinical or registry study, and you get all the people on board. So finally, and I touched base on this one, the success factors is KOL management. You train, you help supply, you give the reimbursement support, and help in case queries, clinical questions, and coding are there. So overall, and to go to my summary, the real success factors, it's the team. Essential to have people on site, speaking Germany, local language, training the people, help with the supply, support all the stakeholders, and making sure you have a growing team from the get-go. And in this way, we started to do all our business directly ourselves to have control. And if you have an optimal mixture of team members, then you will fly. Now, I'll come to the summary of my talk. I think to enter Germany, there are some key factors for success. You need to identify the clinical need. You need to have intelligent solutions for the need. Before entering, you need to have a market intelligence strategy in place. You need to have your good partners to work with reimbursement challenges, and you need to have that with a dedicated team on site in Germany. With that said, I'm ending my my talk now. I'm happy to answer any questions which is following out of my talk.
Wouter, thank you so much. And thank you again to Michael and to Gabriel. And on that note, regarding the questions, we're actually done with our 3 presentations, and it is time for the Q&A session. It'll be open forum on the speaker's end. We do have a couple of questions already. Thank you to Ken, to Jack, to Jennifer for posting those. I have a few other ones. Oops, sorry about that. And we'll begin right away. First question is for all the speakers, and we'll see who wants to take a stab at it. Will the UDI database elements match those currently used in the U.S.? The unique device identification database elements match those in the U.S. Anyone want to take a stab at that?
Sure, Omar. This is Gabriel. This is Gabriel speaking. I'd like to take that question.
Sure.
I think, yeah, the UDI system to be introduced in Europe will be quite similar to the U.S. system, and in that sense, definitely the categories will pretty much be the same. That would be my answer.
Gabriel. Thank you very much. Another question from Jack here. Can companies apply for the NUB or NUB status, or does this have to be done by the hospital on a case-by-case basis? Who would like to take that one?
Yeah, this is Michael speaking. The NUB applications have to be submitted by the individual hospital. Of course, manufacturers support this process, but in the end, the submitter and the official responsible institution is the hospital.
Great, thank you, Michael. Another question here from Jennifer. It looks like it's a 2-part question. I'll read it out. So if I understand correctly, the required clinical study to provide evidence is for a method, not a particular device. What happens when there are a number of manufacturers trying to get approval for one type of novel device?
Okay, yes, it's right. So G-BA always assesses methods, never individual devices. This means that for one method there could be several devices. In the question I see here also on my screen, it's related to TAVI, for instance. So what can happen in the process is that, of course, there can be a free rider issue, meaning that if one early mover manufacturer goes ahead and let's submit for NUB via hospitals, G-BA comes to the conclusion this method is subject to the new process, they do the evidence assessment, come to the conclusion there is only a potential and they want to initiate a trial. Then in that case, it can happen that this first mover manufacturer carries the cost of the trial alone, and others could later on piggyback on the coverage decision for the method. However, it will be the case that G-BA always, before then finally moving forward with such a trial, what they do is that they usually make a public announcement requesting affected medical device manufacturers, so manufacturers that would be also affected by this new trial. They ask to get in touch with G-BA and then ask these manufacturers for their willingness to participate as a co-funder in that trial. So it is possible for several companies to co-fund these trials.
Thank you, Michael. I hope that answered Jennifer's question. Another question came in from Matthew here. I'm so glad that these questions are coming in so nicely. You guys are doing a great job. Based on your experiences, what does a technology need to get an NUB status 1 approval?
First of all, the whole process of decision by INAC is a closed shop thing. So the exact reason why INAC decides this or that is not published. The best way to start with, according to my experience, is if something is in a sense completely new, that it's not codable in the current DRG system, that it has significant incremental costs on top over otherwise applicable DRGs, and that it is also clinically completely new.
Wonderful, thank you. Here's a question actually for Wouter. What was the ballpark cost to get the NUB code for your product?
Costs
You're comfortable sharing that?
The cost for the NUB coding, yeah, was not as expensive as I was expecting. So to do this, I don't have the real figure in my head, but what we have been doing, I can only say what we have been doing, is we have identified some key early adopters, see what they would like to bring this to the marketplace, and I've been in contact with Michael Weiser, yeah, since from the get-go, and the cost was relatively low compared to what you do. You have running costs as well because you need to update every time your NUB. So to make a full answer in how much it will cost, I think the initial investment is in time, understanding the market, but if you can make a good deal with your collaboration partner, your reimbursement partner, it helps a lot. So I can look into this, yeah, what the exact costs are, because it was in 2013. I think it is relatively low compared to other markets where I wanted to introduce new technology to the marketplace, but there people want to see randomized controlled studies, and they want to see an economical benefit versus the golden standard, and there the costs are so much higher. So I would recommend to look into the NUB if you have a very innovative product, as well as if it doesn't fit into the current DRG system. If there is already a new product and it fits in DRG, I mean, it's a no-brainer go, yeah, because then you have a much quicker market uptake.
Thank you, Wouter. It was a great answer. I realize we're a little bit tight on time. We're technically out of time, but I just want to get two more questions in. In terms of the revision of the new CE marking regulations, does the clinic have to be generated in the EU, or can it be from other territories? Question from Elaine.
Right, it's Gabriel again taking that question. It's my pleasure. Definitely the clinical trial can be done outside of the European Union. It's not mandatory to run them in Germany, and it's not mandatory to run them in Europe. Of course, it is important to do it in the right places. You know, USA, Singapore, etc. would probably have no big issues connected. Yeah, answer is it's not mandatory to do it within the EU. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. And final question here. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can add a little bit on our experience. Sure. Yeah, we started our clinical trials first in Chile. Yeah, and since we then duplicated our multi-center trial in Holland, as well as in the UK, as well as in Hong Kong, as well as in Australia, as well as in New Zealand, we have used that data for our filing, as well as our DRG filing, because this has been accepted. I think, yeah, the key thing here is do your clinical trial in countries where people believe this is real.
Thank you. That's great. That's great advice as well. Again, I'm trying to respect the time of my speakers and everyone else's time. We're going to just do one more question. I'm sorry if we didn't answer everyone's question, but we will follow up. So the final question here, can you please comment on the timing of initiating the NUB process as related to initiating the CE mark approval?
So independently or other way around, you will never succeed in the NUB process, and this also relates to the NUB process, which as it has been existing so far. You will never be successful if you have no CE marking. So the CE marking of the device, of the relevant device, has to be in file, certainly.
Thank you, Michael. Well, at this point, I just want to thank our speakers again. I'm just going to put their pictures up one more time right here. And if you want their speaker bios, the presentations, the live stream, you will be getting a follow-up email from our system, but you can also access all that on our URL. Thank you for joining us today from all corners of the world, folks from Japan, Singapore, New Zealand, Nigeria, Argentina, the US, Egypt, and Belgium. Sounds like the lineup for the 2018 World Cup. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, email me. There's my information. Thank you to my speakers. Have a wonderful day, and goodbye.